Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment when a woman looks in the mirror and sees the truth. Not the version someone else created for her, not the lies she was made to believe, but the raw, undeniable truth. She is free. A woman of strength doesn't wait for permission to reclaim her life. She doesn't sit in the shadows of someone else's ego, hoping for love that comes with conditions. No, she steps into the light, untouched, unbroken, and unstoppable. And if you're still entertaining manipulation, still questioning your worth because someone conditioned you to believe you're not enough, this is your wake-up call. Because a strong woman doesn't belong in a narcissist prison. She belongs in her power. And tonight you're about to learn how to take it back. A woman of strength chooses liberation, not because it's easy, not because the road is smooth, but because she knows deep in her soul that she was never meant to live in chains. She was not created to be someone's emotional puppet, to dance on command, to silence her voice just to make someone else feel bigger. No, she was created to stand tall, to walk boldly, to move through life with the power of a woman who knows her worth. Not every woman wakes up to that reality right away. Some have spent years, even decades, believing the lies, believing that love is supposed to hurt, believing that if they just give a little more, tolerate a little longer, endure just a little bit more, one day they'll be enough. But enough for who? A man who sees her as property instead of a partner? A so-called friend who only shows up when they need something? A toxic family that uses guilt as a leash? That's not love. That's not connection. That's control. And the first step to liberation is recognizing the prison. Because the truth is, a woman can be free on the outside but locked up in her mind. She can walk through the world with a smile, but deep inside she knows she's living for someone else's approval. Still bending, still shrinking, still apologizing for taking up space. That's not life. That's survival. A woman of strength understands that choosing liberation is not just about walking away. It's about breaking the mindset that kept her stuck. It's about unlearning every false belief that told her she had to earn love through suffering. It's about standing in front of that mirror and finally seeing herself, not through the eyes of someone who diminished her, but through the eyes of truth. And when she does, when she finally sees that she is whole, that she is powerful, that she is enough just as she is, everything changes. She no longer waits for validation. She no longer accepts apologies without change. She no longer entertains people who speak in half-truths and manipulation, because she knows what it took to reclaim herself, and she will never lose herself again. Does that mean the road to freedom is easy? No. Because when a woman decides to rise, there will be resistance. The very people who benefited from her silence will call her difficult. The ones who once controlled her will call her cold. And the world that expected her to shrink will demand that she go back to being small. But she won't. Because she has seen the truth, and once a woman sees the truth, she can never go back to the lie. So she chooses herself. Not out of selfishness, but out of survival. She chooses her peace, not because she doesn't care, but because she has finally realized that real love does not come with chains. And the moment she takes that first step toward her freedom, she sets a new standard, not just for herself, but for every woman watching, because when one woman breaks free, she shows others that they can too. That's the power of a woman who chooses liberation. She doesn't just walk away from the prison, she burns it down so she can never be locked inside again. She stands, she thrives, she moves forward without apology. And the world has no choice but to watch her shine. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors with locks that only open for those who respect them. A woman who understands her power does not live with an open door policy, allowing anyone to walk in and out of her life as they please. She does not give unlimited access to people who take more than they give. She does not entertain those who drain her energy, twist her words, or make her question her own reality. No, she stands firm because she knows that if she does not protect her space, someone else will claim it for themselves. A woman without boundaries is like a house without a fence, open to trespassers who do not care what they ruin, and too often women are taught that setting boundaries is rude, that saying no makes them difficult, that walking away from toxic people is selfish. But that is a lie told by those who benefit from a woman's lack of limits. The truth is, a woman with boundaries is a woman who values herself. She knows that her energy is sacred, her time is precious, and her mind is not a playground for someone else's games. Setting boundaries is uncomfortable, especially for a woman who has spent her life prioritizing the needs of others. She may feel guilty when she says no. She may second-guess herself when she refuses to tolerate disrespect. She may even feel the pressure to explain why she is making a choice that serves her well-being. But a woman of strength does not explain her self-respect. She does not justify protecting her heart. She does not apologize for demanding the bare minimum of decency. People who truly care about her will respect her boundaries without question, but those who are used to exploiting her, those who are used to manipulating her, will call her difficult, selfish, or cold. They will try to guilt her into breaking her own rules. They will test her to see if she really means what she says, and this is where her strength is revealed. Because a woman of power does not just set boundaries, she enforces them. She does not let people walk all over her and then complain about the footprints. She locks the door on those who refuse to treat her with the respect she deserves. Some will try to convince her that she is being too harsh, that she should give second chances, that she should be more forgiving. But she understands the difference between forgiveness and access. She can forgive someone for the pain they caused her, but that does not mean she has to welcome them back into her life. She can wish someone well from a distance without allowing them close enough to hurt her again. The most powerful thing a woman can do is decide who has the privilege of being in her life, and make no mistake, it is a privilege. It is not something to be handed out freely. Not everyone deserves her energy. Not everyone deserves her kindness. Not everyone deserves a seat at her table. And when she starts living by this truth, she will see her life change. She will notice how much lighter she feels without the weight of toxic relationships. She will see how peaceful her days become when she is no longer walking on eggshells around people who do not respect her. She will feel the power of her own presence when she no longer begs for love, attention, or basic decency. A woman with boundaries is a woman who knows her worth. And when a woman knows her worth, she becomes unstoppable. She moves differently. She speaks with confidence. She carries herself with a quiet strength that does not need validation. She is no longer accessible to those who drained her, used her, or took her kindness for granted. She understands that setting boundaries is not about keeping people out, it's about protecting what's within. Her peace, her energy, her self-respect, these are things she will no longer sacrifice just to make someone else comfortable. Because she has learned one of the most important lessons of her life. A woman who respects herself sets boundaries. And a woman who sets boundaries walks in freedom. A woman who chooses herself is a woman who refuses to live as an afterthought. She does not wait for permission to exist fully, to love herself deeply, or to walk boldly in her truth. She does not shrink herself to make others comfortable. She does not silence her voice to avoid confrontation. She does not dim her light so that someone else can shine. No, she stands tall, knowing that her existence is not something to apologize for. But choosing herself does not always come easy. Too many women have been conditioned to believe that self-sacrifice is a virtue, that being a good woman means putting everyone else first, meeting everyone else's needs, and leaving herself last on the list, if she even makes the list at all. She has been taught that love means endurance, that being needed is the same as being valued, that saying yes to others, even when it costs her, is a sign of strength, but that is a lie. There is nothing noble about neglecting yourself. There is no reward for being exhausted, broken, and drained while everyone else thrives off your energy. Love is not about losing yourself to prove your worth. True love, starts within. It starts when a woman looks in the mirror and decides that she is enough, that her needs matter, that her happiness is not a luxury, it is a priority. And the moment she realizes that, everything shifts. She no longer tolerates relationships that drain her. She no longer pours into cups that never pour back into her. She no longer confuses being needed with being loved, because she understands that the people who truly love her will never ask her to abandon herself for them. Choosing herself is not about being selfish. It is about self-respect. It is about refusing to live a life where she gives everything and receives nothing. It is about knowing that she deserves the same love, care, and devotion that she so freely gives to others. And once she makes that choice, she will never be the same. People will not understand. Those who benefited from her self-neglect will be the first to accuse her of being selfish. They will call her distant. They will say she has changed, and they are right. She has changed. She has changed in the best way possible. She has stopped waiting for permission to prioritize herself. She has stopped explaining why she is setting boundaries. She has stopped feeling guilty for choosing peace over chaos, growth over stagnation, and self-love over self-sacrifice. And the ones who truly care about her, they will celebrate her. They will honor the woman she is becoming. They will respect her decision to no longer settle for less than she deserves, because the people who genuinely love her will never expect her to abandon herself just to make them comfortable. This is what true freedom looks like. A woman who chooses herself is a woman who refuses to beg for love, attention, or validation. She no longer waits for someone to see her worth. She sees it herself. She no longer tolerates relationships that demand she shrink. She takes up space. She no longer feels guilty for prioritizing her own well-being. She knows that she cannot pour from an empty cup. And when she walks in this truth, she becomes unstoppable. She becomes a woman who radiates confidence, who moves with purpose, who speaks with authority. She is no longer weighed down by the expectations of those who only wanted her in pieces. She is whole. She is powerful. She is free. Because the greatest act of self-love a woman can commit is choosing herself, without apology, without hesitation, without fear. And once she does, she never looks back. Respect is not something a woman should have to beg for. It is not something she should negotiate or lower herself to receive. It is the foundation of every relationship, whether it be romantic, familial, or professional. A woman who knows her worth does not tolerate disrespect in any form, because she understands one simple truth: the way people treat her is a direct reflection of what she allows. Disrespect does not always come in obvious forms. It is not just the loud insults, the blatant betrayals, or the outright mistreatment. No, it often starts subtly. A dismissive comment here, a joke at her expense there, a small lie that she overlooks, a boundary that is crossed, but she lets it slide because she does not want to seem too much. She does not want to seem difficult. She does not want to make waves. And before she realizes it, those small moments of disrespect stack up until they become the standard, until she is no longer respected, only tolerated. But a woman of power, a woman of dignity, refuses to live that way. She refuses to exist in spaces where she is not valued. She refuses to keep people in her life who belittle her, manipulate her, or make her feel less than. She understands that allowing even the smallest forms of disrespect sends a message that says, this is acceptable. And once someone knows they can get away with disrespecting her, they will do it again and again, until she decides enough is enough. Respect starts with her. with the standards she sets, with the way she carries herself, with the way she enforces her boundaries. Because make no mistake, boundaries mean nothing if they are not enforced. A woman can say all day that she will not tolerate disrespect, but if she continues to engage with those who mistreat her, her words mean nothing. People learn how to treat her by what she allows, what she responds to, and what she walks away from. Walking away is not weakness. It is not giving up. It is not being difficult. It is an act of self-respect. It is a declaration that she would rather stand alone in dignity than be surrounded by people who do not value her. And the moment she realizes this, she will see how many people in her life were only there because they could get away with treating her poorly. Some will try to convince her that she is overreacting, that she should be more forgiving, that she should lower her expectations, but she does not listen to those voices because she understands that her expectations are not too high, others' respect is too low. She knows that asking for basic decency, honesty, and consideration is not asking for too much, it is asking for the bare minimum. And if someone cannot meet that, they do not belong in her life. When a woman stops tolerating disrespect, everything changes. The energy around her shifts. The people in her life adjust or they leave. And that is a good thing because she no longer entertains those who only take from her, who only drain her, who only keep her around because she was willing to put up with their nonsense. Now she demands more. And the ones who cannot rise to that level will fall away. This is not an easy path. It takes courage to stand firm in self-respect. It takes strength to walk away from relationships she once valued. It takes resilience to hold the line when people try to guilt her into accepting less. But the reward is peace. The reward is confidence. The reward is a life filled with people who genuinely value her, not just those who were using her. A woman who refuses to tolerate disrespect is a woman who commands a different kind of presence. She does not need to yell to be heard. She does not need to beg for kindness. She does not need to explain why she deserves basic decency. She just is, and that is enough. Because the moment she stops tolerating disrespect, she stops settling for less than she deserves, and that is the moment she steps into her true power. A woman who sets boundaries is a woman who refuses to be controlled, manipulated, or drained. She understands that boundaries are not walls, they are doors. They do not shut people out. They determine who is allowed to enter and how far they can go. Boundaries are not about keeping love away. They are about making sure only real love gets in. For too long, women have been told that saying no is rude, that standing up for themselves is aggressive, that setting limits makes them difficult to deal with. But a woman who respects herself knows better. She knows that the only people who get upset when she sets boundaries are the ones who benefited from her having none. She has spent too much time being the woman who says yes when she really wants to say no, the woman who overextends herself because she does not want to disappoint anyone, the woman who carries burdens that were never hers to hold. She has been the woman who gives, gives, and gives until there is nothing left for herself. And she knows that living that way is not sustainable. So she makes a choice. She chooses herself. She decides that she will no longer be available for people who only show up when they need something. She will no longer be a safe place for those who bring chaos into her life. She will no longer stretch herself thin just to make others comfortable. She draws the line. And the moment she does, the shift is undeniable. The people who truly love and respect her will adjust. They will understand. They will honor her need for space, her need for peace, her need for self-care. But the ones who were only there for what she could do for them, they will push back. They will guilt trip her. They will accuse her of being selfish, of being cold, of being different. And they are right. She is different because she refuses to be the woman who sacrifices herself just to be liked. Boundaries are an act of self-love. They teach people how to treat her. They separate the genuine from the opportunistic. They protect her from emotional exhaustion, from toxic relationships, from people who only see her as a resource instead of a person. A woman with boundaries is a woman who commands respect without demanding it. She does not need to raise her voice to be heard. She does not need to explain herself over and over. She simply states what she will and will not accept, and she enforces it. She does not argue about it. She does not beg anyone to understand. She does not allow manipulation to sway her. She has learned that people who love her will respect her limits, and those who do not respect her limits do not truly love her. It is as simple as that. This strength does not come overnight. It takes time. It takes unlearning years of conditioning. It takes moments of discomfort, of guilt, of second guessing, but she stays the course because she knows that boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about protecting her peace. She no longer apologizes for requiring respect. She no longer feels guilty for prioritizing her well-being. She no longer accepts relationships where she is expected to give endlessly while receiving nothing in return. She has outgrown the version of herself that tolerated disrespect, that made excuses for others, that ignored her own needs. She moves differently. She speaks differently. She carries herself differently. She does not seek approval. She does not chase people who do not value her. She does not entertain conversations that drain her energy. And because of this, she is free. She is free to love without losing herself, free to give without being depleted, free to exist in relationships where she is honored, not used. She is no longer controlled by fear of disappointing others, fear of being alone, fear of rejection, because she understands that the right people will never ask her to choose between loving them and loving herself. She has learned one of the most powerful lessons in life. Saying no to what drains her is saying yes to herself. And that is a choice she will never regret. Yeah. A woman who values her peace does not entertain chaos. She does not waste her energy on people who thrive on drama, manipulation, or negativity. She understands that peace is not something that just happens. It is something she must protect. It is a decision she makes every single day. For too long, she may have allowed toxic people to steal her joy. She may have tolerated relationships that drained her, conversations that left her exhausted, and situations that brought nothing but stress. She may have felt obligated to maintain connections with people who did nothing but disturb her spirit. But the moment she realized that protecting her peace was her responsibility, everything changed. She no longer feels guilty for walking away from situations that disrupt her well-being. She no longer apologizes for cutting off relationships that do not serve her. She no longer engages in arguments that go nowhere. She has learned that not every battle is hers to fight, not every invitation to conflict needs a response, and not every person deserves access to her mind and emotions. The woman who values her peace walks differently. She moves with purpose. She does not allow herself to be pulled into unnecessary drama because she understands that every time she entertains negativity, she sacrifices a piece of her sanity, and she refuses to do that anymore. She knows that peace is expensive. It is bought with the price of saying no to things that disturb her energy. It is bought with the courage to remove herself from environments that do not align with the life she wants to live. It is bought with the discipline to choose solitude over company that drains her. People may not understand her shift. Some will call her distant. Some will say she has changed, and they are right. She has changed. She no longer engages in meaningless conversations just to fit in. She no longer explains herself to people who are committed to misunderstanding her. She no longer feels the need to prove her worth to those who never truly valued her. She has learned that sometimes silence is the best response, that sometimes walking away is the strongest move, that sometimes choosing herself is the only way forward. This does not mean she is cold. It does not mean she lacks love or compassion. In fact, it is the opposite. She loves deeply, but she has learned to love herself just as deeply. She gives, but she has learned to pour into herself first. She supports others, but she has learned that support should be mutual, not one-sided. Because a woman who values her peace does not just survive, she thrives. She thrives because she no longer carries burdens that are not hers to bear. She thrives because she no longer wastes her time on people who do not appreciate her presence. She thrives because she wakes up every day with a clear mind, an open heart, and the freedom to live life on her terms. And because of that, her energy shifts. She starts attracting people who respect her boundaries. She starts finding herself in rooms filled with those who uplift, not drain. She starts experiencing a level of joy she never thought was possible because she finally made the decision to protect herself. She understands now that not everyone deserves access to her. Not everyone should be allowed into her space. Not everyone should have the privilege of knowing her thoughts, feeling her emotions, or being a part of her journey. And once she embraced that truth, she became unstoppable. A woman who knows her worth does not beg for love, respect, or loyalty. She does not chase anyone. She does not try to prove her value to people who fail to see it. She understands that her presence is a privilege, not something to be taken for granted. For too long, she may have tolerated less than she deserved. She may have accepted apologies without changed behavior. She may have given people chance after chance, hoping they would finally see her value. She may have settled for relationships, friendships, and situations that made her question her own worth. But that version of her no longer exists. She has learned that self-worth is not determined by the way others treat her. It is something she carries within herself. She no longer looks for external validation. She no longer needs approval to feel secure. She no longer seeks love in places where she is only tolerated, not celebrated. Because a woman who knows her worth understands that the right people will never make her beg for the things she deserves. She does not fear being alone because she understands that solitude is better than forced connections. She does not settle for half-hearted love because she knows what real love looks like. She does not tolerate disrespect because she respects herself too much to allow it. This mindset changes everything. She no longer entertains people who play games with her emotions. She no longer over-explains herself to those who refuse to listen. She no longer accepts relationships where she is the only one making an effort, because she knows that the right people will match her energy, not drain it. Her confidence is unshakable, not because she is perfect, but because she has learned to embrace herself fully. She knows her flaws, but she does not let them define her. She acknowledges her past mistakes, but she does not let them hold her back. She has fallen before, but every time she has risen stronger. And because she walks in this truth, she moves differently. She speaks with certainty. She carries herself with grace. She makes decisions from a place of self-respect, not desperation. She no longer begs people to stay. She no longer pleads for attention. She no longer accepts love that comes with conditions. This does not mean she has become cold. It does not mean she does not care. In fact, she loves deeply, but she has learned to love herself just as deeply. She gives freely, but only to those who appreciate and reciprocate. She supports others, but not at the expense of her own well-being. She understands now that her worth was never up for negotiation, that she does not have to convince anyone of her value, that she does not have to shrink herself to make others comfortable. And once she embraced that truth, she became unstoppable. Freedom isn't given, it's taken. The day you decide to stop justifying your existence, the day you choose yourself over someone else's approval, that's the day you unlock everything. You are not weak for leaving. You are not selfish for choosing peace. And you are not difficult for refusing to be controlled. You were never meant to live in a cage built by someone else's insecurities. So tonight, make the decision, stay trapped in their prison or step into your power. Because a woman of strength walks in freedom, and nothing and no one will ever change that.